Hey guys, so I'm making this video to explain sort of the emotions behind chasing ghosts and also some like directly musical things, but also I think understanding the meaning of the song will help you understand what part your individual parts play into the whole thing in different sections. So just like we're gonna get into the actual music in a second, but just looking at the lyrics, like this song is about basically like a relationship that was held dear to, I guess, the person singing. That sort of fell apart, and there's sort of wistful nostalgia about the whole thing. And they're sort of remembering the relationship. And then there's this I won't keep chasing ghosts, I need somebody I can hold. So it's kind of like a declaration that, like, they're over this whole thing. Um, so let's get into how that sort of plays into the music. So, at the very beginning, we used to have a light, now it's too dark to shine. This is important because it's one of the only places in the entire song where Nikaya is just singing by herself, and so that needs to be really sort of prominent there, obviously. Um, and it just is sort of a way to immediately establish the mood of this song, and then the uos or whatever. Now, whatever I say in terms of dynamics in this video kind of needs to trump whatever's written on the page. So from A all the way through right up until letter F, Nikaya needs to be way over us in terms of dynamics. We all need to be very, very background. So when we're doing these ahs, there will be little like swells and moments like the whoa, like things like that, especially in this section, ooh, oh, whoa, ooh, oh, whoa, whatever we have in this section, because Nakai's not singing anything, so that can come out. But again, we need to be way under her for this entire section. But that being said, these chords need to have a lot of fast air. It just needs to be soft. So don't put out less air just because we're trying to sing softer. Because it needs to have that sort of energy behind it. It just needs to be quiet energy. And this whole thing, the actual chorus at letter D, maybe can come a tiny bit in dynamic, but we're still all about Nikaya, all about Nikaya. This is really like the beginning. This whole song, the way I've written it, you can think of this whole thing as like a story of this person coping with that loss of a relationship. So this whole part is very sort of introspective and pensive, and thoughtful. So all of this is just sort of like remembering that with a kind of nostalgia. Now, when we get to letter F, this is where you might imagine things are looking up for our protagonist. Let's just call it Nikaya because Nikaya's the one singing the song. So things are looking up for Nikaya. She is sort of feeling better about like getting over the relationship and things like that. And so life is sort of going on. So in this section, there's a lot of activity, a lot of just spiraling things that are happening. In this section, we're not always like that far under Nikaya as we have been so far. We really need to start thinking about which parts are important and need to come out. So I've highlighted a lot of it in the highlighted version that's on the drive. Like the parts in blue are the parts that really need to come out, but there are other parts too. So I've basically made this small file of just the important parts, and I've deleted every note that's not one of the important parts that needs to sort of cut through. So we need to think of like if we're singing the song out in a line, like we're standing in a line, all facing one direction, and we have our audience facing back at us, that audience needs to be like constantly turning their heads, like, ooh, ooh, what's happening over here? Ooh, now something's catching my ear over here. Just let me play this. So you can go back and replay that if you're curious about exactly what notes out of your section are like the important ones, but basically when we're doing that dum 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 for the very first measure that needs to come out, so we can just the audience can hear that like yes, this is a thing that's happening. The da 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 da, that rhythm needs to come out, and then oh, that needs to come out anytime pretty much in the entire song that happens. That motif needs to come out, not only just because it's an important motif in this song, but also in Truth or Dare when Nikaya is singing that, it needs to be something that people recognize and associate to this song so it makes sense to them. And then the ooh oh oh is the same sort of deal. It's another motif that really needs to come out. These two last beats of this measure just need to come out. The I guess we tempted fade that really needs to be brought out so people can hear that it's not a mistake. Like people are just like off of Nikaya, but it needs to be clear that it's not a mistake. When you left me, that needs to come out huge, and I'll explain why in just a second. And then whatever happens, the second beat of this measure also needs to come out. So going back to the original, so if we're thinking about F through H as just sort of like life goes on activity, all of a sudden we pull back at letter H and we go back into this thoughtful, introspective mode. It's almost like, again, like you got over a breakup, you're living your life, and then something reminds you of that person, and you're just like, oh, like these emotions are coming back. If we play forward, remember, all of a sudden we've stopped being so active and we've pulled back. Remember when you left me is so important because it just drives home how like personal the thing this is. When you left me, which is not in the original lyrics, obviously. Yeah, I thought I was mean. Stone shirt, black boots. This I might have said something incorrectly when we've been practicing this together. This dynamic that I've written, this decrescendo, is perfectly correct. So we need to pull back, stone shirt, back, black boots, and that's like really quiet, and everything jumps up in volume and just drives into the everything. Beats and everything. So you think of if we're thinking about a memory that's setting you off emotionally, we're remembering stone shirt, black boots, and just everything is that thing that hits us. And then two things happen. One, Nikaya jumps up the octave and makes it more prominent. I let you fool me twice, so shame on me. So that's like really powerful, that lyric. And you might think if someone's like in a room, just like, and these thoughts are hitting them, and it's starting to become overwhelming, you might think of that person's like thinking all of these thoughts in their head, and shame on me actually comes out of their mouth, even though they're not talking to anyone. It just sort of overwhelmingly, and shame on me is they just actually like shout that. Um, that's how I sort of imagine that scene going down. And then while Nakaya is doing that, we got sort of set off by this memory of just sort of everything, and now we're fixated on that one word, everything, 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 and we're back together on shame on me again. So we're shouting that with Nikaya. So there's these two sort of separate things, this fixated, nagging everything, and then also this monologue with I let you fool me twice, so shame on me. But letter J, but that night still haunts my dreams. So again, we've pulled back, Nikaya's back down the octave, but that night still haunts my dreams. And then these voices come in with that night still haunts my dreams to sort of like reinforce that idea. But that night still haunts my dreams. So it's kind of like after this outburst of emotion, we're just sort of like gathering ourselves again. Just to talk quickly about the actual like harmony of this. So we're doing, but that night still haunts my dreams. So that's just tonic, right? We're stacking a third on top of that, so now we're doing 1 and 3. So you would expect if we're just stacking a major triad, the next one would be the 5, and we just do 1, 3, and 5. That's our major triad, and it would sound sort of nice and happy. But then two things happen. Meanwhile, in our bass line, by the way, our bass line is just going up, and that just instills us with this like positive, optimistic emotion. So we're starting to sound major, our bass line is going up and all sounds happy. All of a sudden, instead of going up, our bass line drops, and instead of adding our fifth to make it a major triad, we add the sixth. Now what the sixth does is instead of 1, 3, 5 being a major triad on the first, when you add the sixth and it's 1 3 6, what you're really doing is putting a minor triad on the sixth. So instead of going to the major like everyone's expecting, oh, now we're back in minor, oh, our bass line's dropped. So now we're just not sure. Are we happy? Are we sad? Like, we're just very, very ambivalent, not really sure what's happening emotion-wise. And then now Nikias back up the octave, but that night still haunts my dreams. And so that's more of like a declaration. We take these two beats to breathe, and really that breath, we're not doing like a like we are in Believer, but it's really that same thing. It's sort of that like gathering our emotion to sort of plow through the rest of the song. Um, so then obviously the key change, and from the key change to the end, we need to have power. Like, this is just power. Like, in the everything, 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 shame on me, that's power. We've backed off here, and from the chorus, this is power again. So Nikaya's up the octave, she's barreling through this, and we're just doing the same. Obviously, we're a little bit under her because we're not the soloist, she is, but this is all, like, I should be able to, if we're singing this, I should be able to, like, put my hand in front of your face and feel the hot air because of how the amount of air and the type of air that we're using when we're singing this, very open, chasing, like, I should be able to feel that. This comes back to letter N when we're doing, all of a sudden it gets a little bit busier again. It sort of throws back to that first section where it got very active and very busy. And we're like, oh, okay. The last time it sounded very happy when we did that, so maybe we're ending this major, it's gonna end happy. This is sort of what's going through the head of our audience. I was chasing love. Yeah, this could end really happily. And then we're pulling back. And we're back, maybe wistful, sad again. Right. So we've pulled back, we sound really sad again. Now here, I was only those 4 notes, even though, again, it's like half a measure, but it's really hard hitting because along with the very, very beginning, we used to have a light, now it's too dark to shine. This is the only other spot where Nakaya is singing all by herself. So it really harkens back to the very beginning. I was only chasing a ghost, and we're doing chasing a ghost, whatever your notes are, right? Chasing a ghost. That just sort of goes to give some, I was just about to say it gives closure, but it really doesn't. It just sort of enforces more that we're just sort of conflicted emotionally, and like this, I mean, it sort of represents how, like, you're never, when something is really traumatic to you, like, you never really get over it, you just sort of end up coping with it. So yeah, those are just things to all think about. Please look again at what I said dynamically, about what I said about what parts are important in this section. Like, we need this song, like, everyone needs to be able to sing this song from memory. Like, this needs to be as on point as Believer and Truth or Dare are in terms of what you know from memory and what you can sing confidently from memory. And that way we can just, like, if we can just nail all of the music on our own and then just come together to put it all together and then work on choreo, we're golden. We're absolutely golden. So learn these parts for Chasing Ghosts. Learn it. When you practice it, do it with the dynamics and the emotion. Think about these things as you're singing, and we'll be absolutely great. So hope you guys are enjoying your break, and thank you for watching.